You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode, I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today, on the Adiel Gorel Show.
Well, you use the word epidemic, and I know that the former Surgeon General has coined that phrase about loneliness being an epidemic. The latest stat I've heard is that it's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The experience of feeling isolated and alone. And you can be alone even if you live in a big family, right? If you don't feel like you're connecting meaningfully with people or heard or touched in the way that you've mentioned. And of all the aspects around well-being,
mindset.
Yeah, I have this conversation 3 days a week because my lovely dad is 85, and that is exactly his talk track. Old dog, new tricks. My ship has sailed, and he's not down and out. And so he's a good example of somebody.
Wait a second. He had a ship, and there was a helicopter. He did it. No, the ship has sailed. Okay.
Man, that man will never get on a boat, let me tell you. Okay. And this actually brings up two issues, right? So I love your point that there is a belief sometimes that my best years are behind me. I'm past my prime. Well, whoa. I mean, I'm screeching on those brakes just as fast as I know you are right now because we believe something different. It is never too late to reinvent yourself, to come up with new dreams and hopes. And back to the idea of simple pleasures again, right? It's that what brings you joy in a way that it may not be maybe you are retired and this is not about revamping your career. Maybe this is about identifying again the things that make you feel most alive and finding a way to build them in. So yes, I have this conversation regularly, again, with my father, and this will track back also to the definition of what it means to squander your life versus live astonishingly. Again, who am I to judge that my dad in his condo watching baseball, simple life, love, and he's fine, he's happy, he's ready to go. He's very clear. He's like, hey, I've lived my life, is his quote. And I don't mean ready to go in a dire, call the mental health authorities way. I mean it in a very satisfied, I've lived a good life kind of way. And,
I know, but
tired.
I let's say for the sake of discussion only,
yeah,
that your dad has, 11 years left, just making it up.
Yep.
600 Mondays left. Yeah, I'm getting there. So, I mean, who said that he can't do incredible things, not on yachts and helicopters, but incredible things for him? Maybe instead of watching it on TV, he goes to the ball game in person.
Right.
That's a big thing. Yeah.
Yep. You have now, we're tying all this together. So Csikszentmihalyi, rest in peace, Mr. Flo. He had a really good point that many of us do this thing where we work all week and we're longing for the weekend, right? It's like, oh, I just can't wait because then I'm going to live my life on Saturday and Sunday. And yet his point was often that then come weekend time, many of us do things that are very passive and we actually don't get engaged. So we will watch baseball on TV instead of maybe even going out in the yard and throwing the ball around or going to the game. We will, watch movies rather than about adventure, rather than actually go on an adventure and go for a drive and go to a new neighborhood and try something different and explore. And so there are these little, I look at them as little dials, that we can adjust and say, I'm not one to argue if you find it joyful to watch your movie on TV, just like I will be with my pizza tomorrow night, then so be it. And I just sort of say, and what else might there be for you? Because that is the encouragement. You're right. Whether you're my dad with 11 hopeful years left, knock on wood, or whether you are 29 and you got a lot of runway, hopefully, it's what are just ways that you might want to amplify your life. And let's not limit ourselves because we just feel like, well, now get a load of this. You hear this a lot. Well, now, I got to be responsible. I'm spending my time working. I shouldn't be going and traveling as much or doing as many fun things. And that to me that's dying while you're still alive, that many adults relinquish their hobbies, the fun things that they used to like to do before they got married, before they had kids, before they got a big job. And I think, whoa, that's the portal to the good life, is having a little bit more fun in and out of work. So a lot of stuff thrown in there. There we go.
Oh, okay. So one thing, talking about your dad's baseball. Now, I will admit, baseball's not the game, but I love the local basketball, NBA team, and the NFL team. I'm a sinner. I like watching their games either live or on TV very much.
Yeah.
And in fact, there was a study that shows us, at least for men, the level of your testosterone actually goes up when your team wins and goes down when your team loses. It must be all the old warrior programming. But I can't help but think about old Rome. So the ruling class wants to keep the masses happy. So everybody goes to the Colosseum. And now the gladiators are going to fight. Maybe they're going to kill each other, but people are fascinated. They go home and they were fulfilled. I think the modern equivalent is sports. And people watch sports just like your dad, just like I do. And there is a conversation. People meet many times, even if there's nothing else to, what do you think about, this player, they should really trade this guy. So sports seems to give almost a context to life. It's almost like an excuse in a way. But it's really like going to the Colosseum to watch the gladiators. What do you think about this kind of, pacifying the masses?
Yeah, you know what? I think back to the idea of, hey, if it floats your boat, back to the boats. We're talking boats and ships today too, yachts. Then fantastic. Because I think that there are combinations of things, right? So the sport watching can be a social endeavor. And so then next thing you know, you're chiding your buddies, or you're betting one another, or you're having fun. And that is, that's like the sizzle of life too, is the social side of things that can bring you together. So to bond over that event can be key. Every now and then, of course, dare you try to play it, that's great. But I think that engagement, and sometimes, my dad is proud as an example that he still follows the stats pretty closely. It can keep you sharp. I'm not going to argue with any of that. What I will say, just because I like to sort of shake it up a little bit, is the Colosseum ideas. It's a good kind of metaphor to connect it. It makes me think of diversifying the ways we do our R&R, right? So our recreation. What about shaking it up and saying, like, maybe it's watching a different sport, or shock and horror. What about going to the symphony for a night? Or what about trying something that's completely out of your element? Like, I'm going to go to the theater, and even if it's terrible, at least we'll laugh about it later. Or watching a totally different kind of documentary. And this moves us to what I believe it's sort of back to the prescription of living a life like you mean it. Novelty is so crucial for our well-being. And this goes back to, like, if our days are numbered, I ideally want our days to be as not necessarily full in a outward look, but in a variety filled, what's going to give us the most bang for the buck of being alive. Novelty is key. Shake it up. Shake up your routine, shake up your activities, your joys. What do you think of that?
Okay, no, I very much agree. And we're talking about either being a spectator, but in a way that could be varied and fun, or being a participant. But there's another, element here. We are going to have a sexual wellness summit in a couple of months. And I'm interviewing a lot of people in the sexual wellness space, regardless of, the orientation that you are. There have been studies that show that we need a minimum of 4 hugs a day from someone else, not this kind of hug, from someone else. So now, again, talking about your dad, this, age group, some people may have lost a spouse. Some people may be lonely. Some people may have a social circle, but hugging, that's another thing. So, when you talk about hugging and all it represents, cuddling, kissing, sex, whatever comes with that, obviously this is a great, talk about joy, talk about, it's a whole other thing. But now it involves 2 people. And I think that there is a bit of an epidemic, even from what you see, that even the younger people seem to be lonelier.
Yep.
Maybe the social media is filling up so much of their lives. What do you think about all of that?
Well, you use the word epidemic, and I know that the former Surgeon General has coined that phrase about loneliness being an epidemic. The latest stat I've heard is that it's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The experience of feeling isolated and alone. And you can be alone even if you live in a big family, right? If you don't feel like you're connecting meaningfully with people or heard or touched in the way that you've mentioned. And of all the aspects around well-being, there is one that does tend to bubble up to the top of the heap again and again and again with research. And it is around the notion of relationships that we have. And so researchers have studied the difference between happy people and very happy people, and we obviously know which camp we would like to live in. And one of the biggest differentiators in all of the different cross sections and taking out, well, there's this element, that element, all the noise around science. The distilling point is that the very happy people in that category have meaningful relationships with people that they feel like they can rely on them, they can laugh with them, they can trust them, they can have a hug. And one of the founders of positive psychology, his name was Chris Peterson. He's long since gone. But his quote that I always loved was that there may be no happy hermits. So some of us are loners. I'm a little more of a lone wolf too, being more of an introvert. And at the end of the day, I know I need, for example, back to well-being being the prescription, I need to sometimes push myself for more social engagements because I know that it delivers on so many levels that my initial instinct is, oh, I just want to cancel the brunch, right? Or do you ever, I don't know about you, you might be super social and you're the one leading the charge. But for many of us, at the end of a day or a week, we kind of think, oh, you know what, I would just rather just kind of skip it. And that's the thing to prioritize. Of all the things that we might want to skip just to kind of, let ourselves off the hook, the social stuff, the social sphere, that needs to be made a priority. And I do help clients with that because, life is enjoyed through and with other people.
But this is about social circles, friendships. Mm-hmm. I was narrower than that. Mm-hmm. I was talking about a relationship with a person that can spoon you, that can cuddle you, that can hold hands with you. Yeah. That touch is just. We've had an interview here with an amazing professor, both at Stanford and at Nippon University, who studies forest bathing with proof and what happens when you just see it, even on a poster. Even on a poster makes a difference. The smells, like walking outside. So just the same thing, the romance, the love, the touching, I think is something to be paid attention to. And here you need two. You need two to tango, literally.
Yeah. That more intimate relationship, the research is so compelling, when it does identify that people who are in committed relationships, they call it, the studies are a bit old school, like married, but okay, it could be just a fully committed relationship, I think by definition, that it extends our lives. Like literally our life expectancy increases if we are in a committed, i.e. married relationship. I mean, you can't argue with that. Now, then I would say, yeah, but are they happy years? Because we want our lives to be good. But
exactly. So, again, you have a lot of cases where, let's say there is a heterosexual married couple. They've been with each other for 40 years. They hate each other's guts. They don't separate because they're two friends living in the same house. That's not what I mean.
Yeah. I'm right with you. Yeah. I mean, and that's another example of what I deal with a lot when I work with individuals is this notion of feeling stuck. And we have the stories about how, well, I should stay in the relationship or I should stay in this job because it does deliver on a lot of, levels that I need to pay the mortgage or XYZ. And that sets off all the alarm bells in my system because that is the indication of a flatlined life in some different domains. So we're multifaceted, right? We got lots of areas of our lives where you might say, well, I'm really happy with my friends, but oh my gosh, when I go home, my love life, my marriage is, it's awful. And that, there's necrotic tissue there that does permeate the rest of your life. And that comes back to life is too short to have any important element of your life feel like you are settling, like you are tolerating, like you are stuck and putting up with it. And that is the stuff that makes me want to lovingly throttle all of us, because we can, it does take courage. Absolutely. And yet we can summon it up. And I've never met someone who has made a change in the service of living a life that feels more full for them, who has looked back with regret about making the important change, changing the job, moving to a city that they know that they're just their heart is going to fill up, filling their cup, making the relationship change. Those things are worth it. They're not easy, but they're worth it.
It occurs to me that when people say my love life sucks, they should call it my hate life. Why do they use, the wrong term? My hate life is thriving, So, okay, listen, you're bursting with a unspoken knowledge yet, so far. So I'm going to ask you to change gears here. And we have listeners, we have viewers. Can you pour, on us some tips, things to do? What can we do in the morning?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Yes. One of the easiest starts is to do what I call diagnose the dead zones. And the old management maxim, like you can't manage what you can't measure. You can't live an astonishing life unless you've actually pinpointed, A, what's working for you. Okay, we'll do more of that. But also, where is your life feeling dead? And that's just a start, right? So you may have to look at all the areas of your life. It could be your love or hate life, like you say. It could be your friendships, your career, your financial health, your spirituality, your recreation, your area of knowledge and learning and growth. Pick an area where you feel like, man, that one's the most at risk of dying off and falling off my body. That's the area to focus. So number one, diagnose that dead zone. The number two, I think, is indicate for yourself there are different kinds of well-being. So I look at well-being. There is the opportunity to widen our lives with vitality. And that's the fun stuff. It's the typical version of happiness. It's pleasure. It's experiences. It's do you want to go and learn how to play the flute? Do you want to go out for bottomless mimosa brunches? Do you want to go and have all the fun at the carnival, all the road trips, all the fun stuff, right? Many people are lacking on that, especially in a kind of coming out of COVID environment. So is that where you might want more? Or, I should say, or maybe it's about the deepening aspect, because we make our lives deeper with the aspect of meaning and purpose. So that sense that my life matters, that I have some sort of a reason to wake up, even if it's minor, doesn't matter. Again, no judgment if it's saving the world or if it's just to be a really good aunt, doesn't matter. But do you feel like are you connected to something bigger than yourself? Are you in relationships that feel significant in some way? So finding a way across those two different dimensions to say, what would be one way by the end of this month I could do a little bit more on the widening side? Or what would be one thing I could do to maybe feel like my life is a little deeper with meaning? And fill in the blanks. Back to the idea about it not being super sexy. It doesn't, you got to just identify areas that might make you feel a little more alive and then literally plug them into your schedule to make those things happen. So that would be a different dimension. And then if I have time to squish one more in, I cannot not talk about regrets, because they can be so helpful in steering the course of our lives. So, the old adage, right? You're on your deathbed. Imagine what would be the things that you would wish, and you would be kicking yourself on that hospital gurney. Man, I didn't do that thing that I always said I wanted to do, or it would have been so fabulous. And they can be frivolous or they can be deep. Doesn't matter. But what would be something you would regret not doing? Well, hallelujah, you're not dying tonight, I don't think. So now's your chance to take action on that thing, right? So if it was, I always wanted to write the book. Or if it was that I always wanted to plan an epic trip to go XYZ, or I always wanted to research or go back to grad school or whatever that might be for you, you have a chance to course correct it. And so those are opportunities to live wise.
You just reminded me of a workshop, a 1 week or 10-day workshop that I've done maybe 30 years ago, called the Hoffman process. It was very good. And as part of what we did, we actually had a funeral for, ourselves. Yeah. And we were watching what everybody says about us and that was a pretty powerful, and I think it's exactly in line with what you're talking about.
You're spot on. I do retreats from time to time that involve that exercise because it is so powerful about going through the motions. And, sometimes it's fun for you to write your own eulogy or to literally get input. I am a fan even just of the living funeral where I need to get up the nerve to do this for my dad because I don't want to freak him out completely. But, a lot of the best, think about all the learning you would learn about yourself. If you could be the fly on the wall in your funeral, well, why not get ahead of the curve and get a little bit of insight before you actually go? So,
I wouldn't go into the reasons why there was a fly on the wall in my funeral. I don't want to go into that at all. But yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Now, how can we reach you if somebody listens to this and says, she speaks my language, I would love to leverage her knowledge and expertise. How can people benefit from what you have?
Okay, well, thank you for asking. I can be found at 4000mondays.com. Everything's there. I have resources. There's a Monday morning calculator, which, by the way, don't think we're getting away with not calculating your Mondays right here, right now. But that's where I live, is on the internet at 4000mondays.com.
4,000 is the number 4000.
That will get you there. Both roads lead.
Both roads. Okay.
Yep. And so should we do the math right now? Do you think we could maybe play around a little?
All right.
How old might you be hypothetically?
Well, let's say I'm more than 50.
All right. This exercise just became a charade, but that's fine. Times 52. I'm going to say you have 1,300 Mondays left.
Okay.
How does that make you feel?
More pressured, more confined, more constricted in a way.
Yeah.
But also it does have the flame of motivation. What? Yeah. Let's get going.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you there's a duality of feeling. That's the oh no-ness that, well, you'd be odd if you didn't feel that there was a pending pressure that didn't feel lovely. And the flame of let's get down to it. Let's get down to writing more songs, more of the things that you have still excited in you to do. You got time.
There are promises out there that hold the promise of lengthening our lives and the number of Mondays that we have. A lady in Berkeley, right across the bridge from me, got the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago for the development of CRISPR, CRISPR. It's a genetic editor. And it's not fully commercially available yet, but once it is, they can basically do a DNA test on you and say, you know what? There are these genes that could cause X, Y, and Z. Let's get rid of them. And they can. Or let's modify them. That alone, when it gets going, could add another 10, 20 years. Now, in Silicon Valley, there are groups that are doing nanorobotics. And they predict that in the next decade, only decade from now, they'll be able to spray 100 million nanobots into your mouth. They go into all your cells, the mitochondria, and fix everything. Now, how old are you now? How many Mondays did you just gain? So these promises, on the one hand, you say, whoa. On the other hand, they kind of take away some of the urgency.
The urgency, yeah. Yeah, it's such a good point. That Monday spray, I'm very curious about it. At the end of the day, we could still be deliberate about how we fit in what we want to fit in. But, I have grave concerns that is going to make us do that thing where it's that later. What if the spray stops working?
Well, of course, we don't know. I mean, we do know that when it comes to that path, with all the flaws of science, it has many, many flaws and side effects and things that nobody knew and unintended consequences. We know all of that.
Yeah.
But usually the trajectory of things like this is it gets better.
Yeah.
There's a mistake, they learn from it, they make it whatever. Talking about workshops, I'm a kind of like a workshop junkie, or at least I used to be. So I remember in one very spiritual, very beautiful workshop, our job for a half a day was we were housed in a simple home with a porch, was to do the old sit on the porch in a rocking chair and do absolutely nothing. You kind of touched on it. Sit there, you're not on the phone, you're not on your computer, you're not on social media, you're just watching the fields, and that's fulfilling. But I mean, to take this and extrapolate it higher, even though there's the pressure of death is on our shoulder, still doing nothing has its own, and we're not even going to meditation or things of that nature.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing out the balancing act, because, I've recently had some debate around what squandering really means. Because I talk a lot about living a squander-free life, right? Like, we don't want to get to the end and feel like, man, I just sort of squandered all of it. Thanks a lot. And yet, depending on your definition, the right dose of what I call squandering, as in unplugging, as in just being versus doing, that is a part of an extraordinary life. And in the same breath that I will talk about needing novelty and newness to stave off any kind of boredom, I will also agree that in the spectrum of life, a touch of boredom can be really valuable to help spark the creative energy that we might need to kick off the next project or the next idea. And so everything is about the right balance of it. And so I agree with you that having time to unplug, ideally in a way that it's not just empty calorie unplugging. So empty calorie unplugging would be on the screen or spending countless, minutes and hours on social media, et cetera. We know that the things that we finish that leave us feeling that emptiness inside, it's very different from, a reflective time where I did stop and contemplate and observe and people watch. There's a different flavor to that delicious kind of squandering, and that's recommended.
Which is another little door, what we call meditation, mindfulness, faith, whatever sort it may be, not necessarily the organized kind, connection to the universe, connection to a higher power, whether it's there or not, however we define it. That's another segment of life, which shouldn't really be ignored, should it?
Well, there you have exactly nestled into that deepening category that I look at about deepening your life with meaning. That exactly fits into that. I think you can be, the mindfulness in particular, mindfulness is, you can be mindful while you are on the roller coaster. You can be mindful while you're volunteering. That can be anywhere, anytime, as it could and should be. But some of those other aspects are part of that rich, it's called the eudaimonic dimension of well-being that really does create a really nice heavy hitter in the subjective life satisfaction, which really is just what we're after. We just want to subjectively feel like we're satisfied in life.
Okay, I'm sure you have a book out there. If so, what would the name be?
I'm in the process of writing it. It's due to my publisher in October. So in progress. Thanks for asking.
And the name? 4,000 Mondays?
No, it's actually, the name is being debated. So if I tell you one right now, it'll change by October, by next year.
No. I'd like to take a look at it. So if I go to the website 4,000 Mondays, what am I going to find? Am I going to find one-on-one sessions with you, workshops? What am I going to find?
Yeah. You are going to find a Monday blog for every Monday in the last few years. You're going to find resources with different questions and ideas and ways to kind of challenge yourself. You'll find information on me doing workshops and keynotes, because that's the thing that lights me up the most, right? Is working, like speaking from the mountaintops with your group or your team. I don't do as much one-on-one coaching anymore, but every now and then I have room for one or two, but that's less and less these days. And then the same thing about retreats every now and then. And there's an online course, which is called How to Live Like You Mean It. And that's where people can self-guide it at your own time, in your pajamas, wherever you want to do it. Go through 12 modules on living with more intention in exactly the ways we've been talking about.
Well, that sounds like a great resource.
I love it.
Because
I'm biased, but I love it.
you keep thinking about it. This is what drives you.
Yeah.
I look at you as not just at you, but when somebody is focused on an idea,
Yeah.
and I have my own ideas that I focus on,
Yeah.
you become a resource because you become an expert. I don't care what's in front of your name. If that's what occupies your thinking and your life, you become a resource, and we all want to benefit from that. So that module, that 12 module course sounds very, and I'll be able to find it on your website.
Yeah, it should be pretty darn clear. And if not, I got a problem. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Jodi, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show. This is a wonderful message. I love your message. And we hope to see you, again soon.
Hey, I would be so pleased to spend any more of your 1,300 Mondays to go with you.
So, here, though, we are meeting on a Wednesday. So I'm safe. We didn't even burn anything. It's between Mondays.
Excellent point. This is like extra spare gravy time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm with
Well,
you.
thank you so much. It was a joy to have you on the show. Thanks.
Pleasure to chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today for the second part of our amazing interview. If you didn't catch part 1, don't miss out. The link is in the description below for you. And be sure to click the subscribe button for more videos.